Julian Gentle.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker.
Just before the member speaks, can I have indicated a couple of times to members in the last day or so to wind up their speeches. I do that, when they run out of time, and I don't appreciate when people, as I think we've had three, just sort of keep on going till I stand up. If members do persist in doing that, I just won't give them any time to wind up. Julian Gentle.
Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koutou.
5-minute speech for the ballot one.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare. The Prime Minister's speech really highlighted for me the wasted opportunity of the last 8 years. It was rich in the usual rhetoric about responsible financial management, paying down debt, delivering benefits to New Zealand and growing the economy. We always hear a lot about that from the government. But the reality doesn't quite match up with the rhetoric. Credit where it's due, things are ticking along. This national government is very good at focusing on the short term and protecting the status quo. And that much can be said for them. And it is true what the Prime Minister said, for example, about wages rising. They're rising just faster than inflation. So real median income, since National took power, has increased by about 2.8%. But for many New Zealanders, they're not actually better off, particularly many who are living in Auckland, where house prices have increased by 80% during that time. So obviously, some property investors are much better off than they were 8 years ago, but many people, particularly young people, low-income people, are going to find it that much harder to find a decent place to live that's close to jobs and education. After 8 years, it's pretty clear that National isn't going to do anything to reduce our shocking levels of inequality, which go back to the 1980s and 90s. There's been no plan to increase the supply of social housing. There's been a very half-hearted attempt to close the tax loopholes on property, but unlikely to have much impact given how full of loopholes that particular legislation is. There's not even a plan to feed hungry kids lunch in schools, even though we could easily afford it. National has also shown that they're not going to do anything to rapidly increase the diversification and innovation in our economy. Our exports are now a smaller percentage of GDP than they were when National came to power. So back in 2008, exports were 31% of GDP. Now they're back down to 28%. Over the last 8 years, the export of low-value, unprocessed primary products like milk powder, raw logs, not only haven't declined as a share of our exports, they're actually growing faster than any other value-added category. So more of the same. No diversification, no innovation. And this is from Statistics New Zealand, Global New Zealand, International Trade, Investment and Travel Profile. We look at the breakdown of our exports. We can see total primary products have increased, unprocessed primary products have increased, and in the processed primary products, the only thing that has increased is milk powder. Out of our total manufacturers, the elaborately transformed and simply transformed manufacturers, their exports haven't increased at all. In fact, they've declined slightly since National's come into power. And of course, the answer to that is to incentivize more research and development. And of course, we hear from the government that that's what they're doing, but New Zealand's overall investment in research and development has started to decline as a proportion of the overall economy. We invest less than half of the OECD average. National's also shown they're not going to do anything to substantially clean up our rivers or to reduce dangerous carbon pollution. So after 8 years of governing, not much has changed, except that Auckland house prices have gone up. We have more children in poverty. Net debt has increased by $60 billion. And of course, our carbon pollution has gone up considerably and is on track to blow out. But there is an alternative. The Green Party knows that we can have a New Zealand where every child, every single child, grows up in a warm, dry, safe, secure home. A New Zealand where they can swim in our rivers without fear of getting sick, where they can walk and cycle safely to school, where they can learn and succeed because they have access to healthy food in school. This is not a pipe dream. It doesn't end there. We know we can have a New Zealand where those kids will grow up and be able to find meaningful work that makes the world a healthier and happier place, that doesn't simply rely on extracting more commodities from our land and water. They can get paid a living wage for that work, and if they fall on hard times or get sick or decide to start a family, the government will be there to back them, because we know that looking after our people is the most fundamental key to having a healthy, happy, successful society. And National will say we can't afford this. The truth is we can't afford not to do it. The Green Party has the practical, costed policies that will deliver this. We know that they work because they've worked overseas. And this is the vision that we have and will deliver for New Zealand when we are in government.